So with this design, I kind of knew the direction that I wanted to go. I wanted to have an electric dragon that felt pseudo-legendary without being overcomplicated. I'm a big Gen 3 person, and I feel like that's kind of where my style fits in. And so I started drawing out the head and sketching it out, and I wanted it to feel kind of a little goofy. I wanted it to be fun. One of the big proponents that I've always loved about Pokemon is that they should feel like they're your friend. So you can see here I have this big, dumb, goofy grin, and I played around with the neck a little bit. I knew that with an electric dragon, I wanted it to feel like an electric dragon. I wanted it to be a living lightning bolt. And that caused a couple issues with the shape. That in the sketch, I kind of sketched it out, said I'm kind of happy with this. I'll finish it up in the actual like harsh line work. And so I even looking at it when recording this, I'm not super happy with the direction of it, but I am glad to know that some of these things change. Where the neck connects to the head specifically, I thought this looks kind of vulture-ish, and I'm not trying to go the vulture route. I actually have a different Pokemon for that. So I was kind of not happy with it. The tail as well, I thought, I'm really hitting this lightning bolt feel, but not the organic animal based on a lightning bolt feel, if that makes sense. So I drew up the wings, and the wings I was really happy with. I still am. I like the idea of them being slender. It almost gives this concept that this Pokemon glides rather than flies. And I think that it adds to the idea of it being able to almost like tuck in its wings and strike very quickly, like a lightning bolt. Ooh. So I was very, very pumped about it. The claws were something that I honestly didn't envision. I didn't think about when I was first doing the concepts. It was, at least in my mind, when I viewed this Pokemon, I completely forgot to think about what kind of claws and feet it would have. So that itself was kind of a an interesting thing of kind of looking and being like, okay, what's gonna work here? I think incorporating more organic, more draconian legs and winged claws really helped to break up some of the shapes, though. So I'm really happy that with the direction that ended up going. Just having legs really broke up the issue with the tail that I was having. You can see here, I'm working actually draw out this top, and this is the point where I was like, am I just drawing Aerodactyl? Am I just drawing a pterodactyl? And I think I thought at the time, like, I'm just gonna dive into it. Forget it. If that's what's gonna happen, then I'm gonna go with it, and I'm gonna try and find other ways to make it my own. And I ended up being happy with the idea of it being very pterodactyl based. I thought that having this ancient type of aura about it made it really cool. The idea of like it's a force of nature, much like you can't outrun like a lightning bolt. The idea of like a pterodactyl or a dinosaur are scary things, and so I went with that. And then just to add up the goofiness, I gave it these eyes, these like permanent shine eyes. I've always loved the idea that Pokemon, there's such a gambit of eyes that you can run through with Pokemon, and it feels like there is no wrong answer. I think of like Wingull and Pelipper, who have just such different eyes from other Pokemon, and then with characters like Snorlax, where it's like, okay, a closed eye is perfectly fine, um, but I like to take the eyes of Pokemon and make them different, make them interesting. I think that every artist has kind of a default, especially every Fakemon artist has a default type of eye because Pokemon has gone through such huge evolutions on that ground that we all have a default. And I think for me, a struggle is breaking away from that. And I was really pumped about this Pokemon really, really, really breaking away from that mold. You can see here I actually chose to give him a belly. That also helped really separate that tail from the rest of the body. Again, I think that my struggle with this design that I was constantly facing was balancing that organic vibe with something that felt lightning bolt, that felt harsh and very hard lined, but at the same time was a Pokemon. And that was a struggle that I faced throughout this design. But I can't say it enough. I was really happy with the way it worked out. This has been one of my favorite Fakemon designs. in a while. Not to say I don't like them. I've been super busy with like Faketober and Inktober and all this other drawing stuff, and it's always a ton of fun. Uh, I was just I was like, man, I really want to get back to drawing something that has a little bit more freedom, that allows me to have kind of whatever it is that I want to do, I can do. And so I was very pumped about that. I loved getting to get back to my roots, so to speak. So a ton of fun, ton of fun, great time. And Inktober was a blast. I actually got to participate in Faketober this year with a lot of really talented artists. I used the prompts list from cursedeye.mon on Instagram. And they put out a really good list. It was a lot of fun. It was my first time actually going through the entire list, doing one a day. And boy, it was. I started out being like, oh, I can drop Pokemon. I can drop Pokemon a day. That's easy. I do that all the time anyway. What's the big deal? And I found myself like rushing to get stuff done. Obviously I'm putting in the effort that it deserves, but like sitting there racking my brain, like, what can I do? Like one of them was winged, and that sounds easy, but it really got me just on the whole concept of what can I do that's different. I feel like everyone's gonna draw birds or bugs, so what can I do? I actually drew. I decided to do based on some guidance from a friend of mine. They said, "What about like Red Bull? Red Bull gives you wings," and I was like, "That is actually genius." So I drew like a red winged bull, and it was a lot of fun. Uh, but here I am getting into doing more of the line work here, doing the wings. Man, I love those wings so much. I love the way that they came out. They feel slender. They don't feel heavy. I wanted them to feel light, and I am pumped about them. And yeah, I think too, you can see I kind of changed up from the sketch a couple things. One of them is, again, the neck. I changed up the neck to give it more of an organic feel, but the other thing is the shoulders. I actually made them more pointed, more, less like they just like come out of that lightning bolt body shape, and more like they flow into it. I think one of the big proponents that I think of with Pokemon is they should be designed to look like they could be your friend. And I think one of the proponents of that is that they shouldn't feel harsh to the touch unless that's the vibe, unless that's the feel you're going for. Drudigon is a pointed monster of a Pokemon, and it's awesome. Some people don't like it, but some people love it. And I think that captures it really well. So with this one, you can see, I could have gone with the spiked tail. I could have gone with like a flail. I actually thought about it for a minute. I thought, what if I put a flail at the end of this, or like a mace? And ended up walking away from that idea just to be able to bring back this shape used in the eye again, and kind of almost give that tail, being that it is so lightning bolt esque, almost to give it that vibe of like touchdown, of striking the ground. So I wanted to have almost this tiny explosion going off there. Here we are picking the colors. I have to be honest, color is probably where I struggle the most. I feel like I have a hard time capturing kind of the palette of Pokemon. I know a lot of artists will actually reference Pokemon and kind of copy over those colors. If they need a brown, then they'll grab like Genghis-Khan and grab the brown off that. Or if they need like a bone color, they'll grab Cubone. Things like that. I think like Greninja is a big one for people who need blues, because Greninja uses such a fun palette for blues. I think a lot of the water starters actually use some really good palettes for cool colors. I think it's really easy as a Fakemon artists to go in and say, okay, this is my water starter. They've got to be blue, all blue everywhere. Um, but like again, Greninja, the biggest like thing that sticks out in its design is that big pink tongue, which I think a lot of people would be drawn to say, okay, how can I make this blue or green? But the official Pokemon art really captures it with like, it doesn't have to be. So that to say, again, with color, it's something that I struggle with because I am lazy and I don't want to go searching up Pokemon when I need a yellow. I mean, gosh, are there even any yellow Pokemon? If there are, put them down in the comments below. There's not a single one that I can think of. I mean, I guess Meowth is kind of yellow. It's kind of tannish color. Can't think of a yellow Pokemon. Sound it off in the comments if you can think of a yellow Pokemon. But you know, things like that where it's if I need a color, I'd much prefer to get it wrong than to know that I made a creative process into math. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's what I feel about it. So here we go. We got this guy here. I'm doing in the shadows. What I like to do with this is I'll actually adjust the hue and then draw in the hue. It gives me a little bit more freedom. So instead of drawing straight on there with certain colors, I can actually know that wherever I draw, whether I draw on that jaw that's a different color or the body, it's going to have that same type of shading, which is good and bad. It's got its gifts, it's got its curses, but yeah, ton of fun. I actually really enjoy the shading on this. I'm not super confident in my shading a lot. I feel like I'm bashing on myself quite a bit on this recording, but um, I'm not confident in my shading a lot. This one, I think I did a really good job, if I can toot my own horn. Really proud of it. It's fairly simple. This Pokemon is primarily 99% yellow. I do a little bit of the lightning on the tail, and of course there's the mouth and the claws. But I really dig the shading on it. I feel it. I vibe with it, and I'm proud of what this came out to be. I do have to say that I'm very proud of how it turned out. This will be on the Instagram. If you don't know, it's Instagram. That's the Sterninator_art on Instagram. I do a lot of Fakemon stuff. Every now and then I'll do other things. Big fan of Ben 10, so I'll do Ben 10 every once in a while if I'm in a Fakemon funk. But yeah, this is this is a heck of a first recording, isn't it? So anyway, here I am here I am shading this guy, and wings are the wings caught me off guard because when I envision these guys, I don't think of every single little step of the process. I just think like what would be cool, and then I got to the wings and I thought, how the heck am I going to shade these? I think I was able to figure out something that worked. Again, very proud of the way that it came out. But I know that the more and more that I put myself in the realm of other Fakemon creators, the more I learn. And I think one of the things I've been looking at most recently has been the shading that they utilize. And it's helped me a lot to see that and use that as examples to go by. Here's where I get to the stuff that I kind of forgot. Like, oh, right, the jaw. Oh, right, the face, the focal point of the picture, completely forgot. But yeah, this is a Fakemon that I've had in my mind for a bit. If you go on my Instagram and you actually dig down, you'll find the older iterations of it. He hasn't changed a ton, and that's mainly just because I love the design so much. So if you see it, that's great. I believe that this came out back when Mega Evolutions were still a thing. So I believe I even actually did a Mega Evolution. If you find that on the Instagram, the Mega Evolution form, let me know. Go in and comment and say, hey, I saw your video, or go in the comments down below and say, hey, I found it. It sucks, or whatever, however you feel about it. But yeah, it's yeah, I want to talk about this lighting. It looks monstrous. It looks terrible. One thing that I have found, and one of the things that I struggle with, is the official Pokemon art like highlights. It almost feels like there are no rules to it. Like it's just what feels right, and that is very hard for me to comprehend. Uh, I found a process that I am okay with and that I can feel comfortable with the shading or with the highlights. But man, it is unnatural. In my art, it is unnatural for me to do. I don't just draw Pokemon; I draw all sorts of stuff, and it feels super unnatural to me personally to do the highlights in that way. So I'm still working on. I'm still tricking myself into thinking it feels okay. You know, I want to do my own thing, but I also want to hit the hot points. So anyway, here's our Pokemon. This is Guildigon, one of my favorites of my Fakemon. You can find it on my Instagram. And yeah, thank you for coming by. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for listening. And I hope that we'll be together to see some more really cool stuff. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Again, not a single yellow Pokemon that I can think of. I'd love to know if there is one. I keep trying to rack my brain on it, and I can't think of a single one. So if you can think of one, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe and follow us on Instagram. I'll have all the links attached and whatnot. Again, this is the first time I'm doing this, so it's gonna be a process. This may feel really loosey goosey, really haywire, but I promise you things will get cleaner, things will work out. But all that to say, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you so much.